The living room was completely dark except for the faint glow of moonlight creeping through the curtains. On the coffee table sat a single piece of paper, a photocopy of a lottery ticket worth $200 million. The numbers on that paper shimmered coldly in the shadows, almost mocking the silence that filled the house. I sat motionless in my armchair, waiting. I had been waiting for 7 days. At exactly 11:17 at night, I heard the familiar click of the front door lock. The door swung open, and there she was. My wife Coraline stepped inside wearing an expensive deep blue silk dress I had never seen before. Around her neck hung a diamond necklace that sparkled even in the dim light. But what hit me first was not what I saw. It was what I smelled. The thick stench of cheap alcohol mixed with a cologne that did not belong to me filled the room instantly. She looked at me sitting there in the darkness, and instead of apologizing or explaining where she had been for an entire week, she smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was a scornful smirk that said everything about how little she thought of me. She flipped her hair back and announced that I should be grateful she even bothered to come back home. Those words hung in the air between us. 7 days of silence, 7 days of wondering, 7 days of planning, and that was her greeting. I did not stand up. I did not raise my voice. I simply told her calmly that there was a document on the table that required her signature. She walked over, her heels clicking against the floor, and picked up the paper. When she realized it was a divorce petition, her entire demeanor changed in an instant. She exploded into a fit of rage, demanding to know why I would file for divorce. She claimed she had only been at a friend's bachelorette party in Las Vegas. She called it a minor misunderstanding and questioned how I could throw away our marriage over something so small. I let her finish her performance. Then I said just one sentence. The combination of scents on you right now is enough to kill a fly, not to mention the detailed reports I received about your activities in Las Vegas with Preston Thorne. Her face went completely white. All the color drained from her cheeks, and her mouth hung open, but no words came out. For a few seconds she just stood there frozen, but then something shifted in her eyes. She stopped pretending. She admitted she had been with Preston but claimed it was her right because I was only home a few days each month. She said a woman has needs and I was never around to meet them. That was when I decided to reveal what I had been holding back. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the photocopy of the lottery ticket. I placed it gently on the coffee table where the moonlight could illuminate the numbers clearly. I told her calmly that we had won the state super lottery jackpot, $200 million. Her reaction was immediate and violent. Her pupils dilated so wide I could see the greed consuming her from the inside. Without any hesitation, she lunged for the paper like a wild animal pouncing on prey. But I was faster. I snatched the photocopy away and watched as her fingernails scraped against the wooden table, leaving deep claw marks. Every pretense of dignity she had maintained was gone. I explained to her that the original lottery ticket now belonged to my parents. I had legally gifted it to them, and they had already claimed the prize through an anonymous trust fund. Under Texas law, the ticket holder is the legal owner, and my gift was completely legitimate. She completely lost control. She started screaming about community property laws and threatened to have Preston take legal action. She declared that I would not see a single penny of that money. Then just as quickly her approach changed entirely. She dropped to her knees in front of me, clutching at my pants and begging. She promised to end things with Preston immediately. She swore we could start over and forget everything. But even while tears streamed down her face, her eyes kept darting to the photocopy in my hand. I knew exactly what she truly wanted, and it was not me. I told her it was too late. The game had already begun, and there was no turning back. She jumped to her feet and threatened to go straight to Preston. She said he would know how to get the money back legally. I just smiled and told her to go ahead. I watched her storm out of the house and disappear into the night. To understand how I arrived at this moment of complete control, I need to take you back 7 days earlier. I had just completed a grueling long-haul freight delivery job, driving a fully loaded truck from Los Angeles, California back to my home in Texas. 25 days on the road had left me completely exhausted in body and mind. But the thought of seeing my wife again kept my spirits up during those final miles. When I finally parked my Peterbilt semi-truck outside our house, my neighbor Holly's Earl approached me. He was a bearded military veteran with a weathered face and knowing eyes. Something about his expression told me he was about to deliver news I did not want to hear. He informed me that my wife had been having quite an eventful time in Las Vegas recently. Then almost gleefully he described the man who had been picking her up in a silver Mercedes. Preston Thorne. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Everyone in town knew Preston. He was a real estate attorney famous for his expensive three-piece suits, gold-rimmed glasses, and reputation for being absolutely ruthless in business dealings. 15 years of driving trucks across this country had taught me one crucial lesson. When you encounter a storm on the highway, the worst thing you can do is panic. Panic gets you killed. You have to stay calm, assess the situation, and navigate through it with precision. I applied that same principle now. Instead of confronting my wife immediately or doing something reckless, I went inside the house to think through my strategy. I walked to the refrigerator to grab a beer, and that was when fate played its most unexpected card. Stuck to the fridge door, held by a funny little cactus-shaped magnet, was a lottery ticket. My wife had drawn a heart on it with red marker and written our ticket to paradise. Almost mechanically, I pulled out my phone and began checking the numbers. The process felt more tense than defusing a bomb. Each matching number made my heart beat faster until the final confirmation appeared on my screen. Jackpot. $200 million. I collapsed into a kitchen chair and stared at those numbers that had the power to change everything. But I did not celebrate. My mind immediately recognized the danger this ticket represented. Under Texas law, marital assets belong to both spouses equally. If I cashed this ticket myself, the woman who had just betrayed me could legally claim half, $100 million. Enough for her and her lawyer boyfriend to live like royalty for the rest of their lives, while I suffered knowing I had funded their happiness. That outcome was absolutely unacceptable, so I made a decision that would alter the course of everyone's lives. That same night, I drove to the small, modest house where my parents lived on the outskirts of town. When my mother opened the door, her face immediately showed concern. From inside, I could hear my father's persistent coughing, a chronic condition he developed after years of working at the local chemical plant. Seeing their humble living conditions only strengthened my determination. I handed the lottery ticket to my parents and told them it was a lucky ticket I had purchased and wanted to give them as a gift. Under Texas law, when you gift something to someone, that person becomes the legal owner. The gift was completely legitimate and left no room for legal challenges. My parents were surprised, but they did not refuse their son's generosity. The very next day, I accompanied them to the state lottery headquarters. They chose to claim the prize anonymously and established a sealed trust fund with the help of qualified lawyers. Every step was documented and completely legal. No loopholes, no vulnerabilities. The clerk at the lottery store where the ticket was originally purchased had poor eyesight and could not remember who bought it. But he vaguely recalled an elderly couple making a purchase around that time, which only strengthened our position. Now armed with nothing but a photocopy, I returned home to wait for the performance to begin. The morning after my wife fled into the night, Preston Thorne filed an emergency lawsuit on her behalf. He appeared in court wearing his signature three-piece suit, looking every bit the formidable legal opponent. He argued eloquently that I had illegally transferred community property to evade legal penalties, but the judge was not convinced by his theatrics. Without concrete evidence that the ticket was marital property, the motion to freeze assets was denied. Preston did not give up easily, though. He launched a campaign of legal harassment against me. He reported me for suspected tax evasion. He filed complaints about potential identity fraud. He even alleged labor law violations against my employer. Every week brought a new attack designed to drain my energy and resources, but I cooperated fully with every investigation and proved my innocence each time. Meanwhile, I had been quietly building my own offensive. I hired the best private investigation team in the city and initiated a comprehensive background check on both Preston and my wife. I wanted them to understand this was not just a legal battle. This was total war. The first results arrived within 3 days, and they were devastating. My investigators uncovered evidence of Preston's numerous crimes, including misappropriation of client funds and bribery of local officials. Even more damaging, they obtained recordings of my wife with not just Preston, but 3 other men. There was Leland Prescott, a vice president at the local bank, Emilio Vargas, her tennis instructor, and Graham Davies, an old college classmate. I launched my counterattack with precision. I purchased 1 full month of advertising space in the Texas People Chronicle. Every morning, readers opened their newspapers to find high-definition photographs of my wife in compromising positions with Preston at a luxury Las Vegas hotel suite. Additional photos showed her with each of her other lovers at various locations around town. The images were accompanied by precise timestamps and location details as accurate as court evidence. The impact was immediate and devastating. My wife transformed overnight from a victim into the laughingstock of the entire community. Women whispered and pointed when she walked by. Men gave her strange, uncomfortable looks. Her other lovers suffered equally harsh consequences. Leland Prescott was terminated from the bank. Emilio lost his position at the tennis club. Graham's wife filed for divorce, but my campaign against Preston was even more thorough. Someone anonymously submitted detailed evidence of his professional misconduct to the Texas Bar Association. His law firm website was hacked and replaced with an intimate photo of him and my wife with the caption "Texas's most honest real estate attorney." His clients abandoned him in droves. Simultaneously, I provided the State Department of Justice and the FBI with comprehensive documentation of Preston's crimes. The evidence detailed how he had misappropriated over $1 million in client real estate funds. It showed how he bribed municipal officials to obtain insider information about land development. It revealed forged documents used to defraud elderly clients of their properties. Preston attempted a desperate counterattack. He sent a fake court summons to my parents demanding they surrender the lottery ticket within 48 hours or face criminal prosecution. The document looked official with seals and signatures, but I immediately spotted it was forged. Real court summons have specific watermarks and security features that cannot be replicated on a standard printer. I reported this forgery to the authorities, adding another charge to Preston's growing list of crimes. Then I discovered something even more sinister. I noticed a black sedan following me consistently over several days. No matter how I varied my routes, the car stayed on my tail. One day I slammed on my brakes at a traffic light and the car nearly rear-ended my truck. The driver, wearing a baseball cap, immediately fled when I approached, but I had memorized the license plate number. Through contacts at the Department of Motor Vehicles, I traced the car to a rental company with Preston listed as the customer. My trucker friends helped me set a trap at a remote gas station outside town. When the stalker thought he had an opportunity to get close, he found himself surrounded by 5 massive freight trucks and their equally massive drivers. Terrified, he confessed everything. Preston had specifically instructed him to find an opportunity to cause an accident that would look natural and leave no evidence. This was attempted murder. I submitted the recording and all evidence to the FBI. Preston now faced not only fraud charges but potential felony charges for conspiracy to commit murder. The FBI decided to conduct a sting operation. They sent an undercover agent posing as a professional hitman to meet with Preston. I was allowed to observe the entire operation from a monitoring room. Preston arrived at the meeting location looking desperate and disheveled. All his former polish had disappeared. He told the fake hitman he needed 3 people eliminated within 1 week, and it had to look like accidents. When asked about payment, he offered $500,000 up front with a $1 million bonus after completion. He even bragged about the $200 million prize and how once the obstacles were removed, that stupid woman would get half and he would take it from her. The moment he finished speaking, federal agents swarmed the location. Preston was arrested on the spot for felony solicitation of murder. The news showed him being led away in handcuffs, a broken man facing the rest of his life in prison. But there was one more piece of satisfaction to come. I revealed to Preston's wife, Maria, that her husband had been cheating. Maria was a successful state prosecutor, and when she saw photographic evidence of her husband's betrayal at their own home, her response was fierce. She filed for divorce immediately and used her connections in the judicial system to ensure every one of his crimes was thoroughly prosecuted. The trial moved swiftly, and the jury needed only 1 hour to convict Preston on all counts. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Additional years were added for the murder, conspiracy, and fraud charges. Through a contact who worked at the federal prison, I learned about Preston's new life. He was assigned to the laundry room where he spent his days washing other inmates' dirty clothes. The hands that once signed million-dollar contracts were now cracked and raw from bleach and detergent. Prisoners who knew his background as a corrupt lawyer made his life particularly difficult. They threw dirty laundry at his feet and forced him to pick it up. One inmate he had previously prosecuted splashed a bucket of filthy water on him, and he could only accept the humiliation in silence. As for my wife, her descent was equally complete. After her public exposure and Preston's arrest, she had nowhere to turn. She attempted one final scheme, sending a forged settlement agreement to my parents claiming I had agreed to give her $10 million. The security cameras I had installed captured her entire attempted fraud, and she was arrested and sentenced to 6 months in prison. When she was released, no one would hire her. Landlords refused to rent to a woman with a criminal record. She was forced to move 300 miles away to the outskirts of Houston, where she found work as a cleaner at a run-down motel called the Sunset. The motel owner exploited her desperate situation mercilessly. Her photos and story became viral internet memes. People created parody videos mocking her greed. Every attempt to start fresh was destroyed when employers discovered her true identity through background checks. Heavy drinking aged her rapidly. Her once attractive appearance became bloated and haggard. One evening she stumbled drunk through the streets and was recognized by a group of teenagers who filmed her humiliation and posted it online for millions to view and mock. She attempted suicide by swallowing sleeping pills, but even death rejected her. The motel owner found her barely alive, and she woke up in a psychiatric ward diagnosed with severe depression. Unable to afford treatment, she was sent back to continue her miserable existence. 6 months after everything ended, I used a portion of the trust fund to purchase my parents a beautiful 50-acre farm outside of town. A comfortable country house with a spacious front porch that I built myself using the finest local pine wood. My father's chronic cough improved dramatically with proper medical treatment. My mother's arthritis was finally under control. Seeing them smile on that porch surrounded by peace and comfort made every moment of the battle worthwhile. I established a veterans charity foundation in town dedicated to helping former soldiers who need medical care. I donated our old house to the local Veteran Support Association, and then I did something that surprised everyone who knew my story. I went back to work. I put on my orange uniform, climbed into my truck, and returned to the highways I had driven for 15 years. The money had not changed who I was or what I loved. On the road, I found the same freedom and purpose I had always known. The difference now was that I had the power to help anyone who needed it. One morning, a letter arrived from the federal prison. Preston had written begging for my forgiveness and asking me to help reduce his sentence. I read the first few lines, then dropped it directly into the garbage without a second thought. Some mistakes cannot be undone. Some betrayals cannot be forgiven. They made their choices, and now they live with the consequences every single day. Standing at a highway rest stop late one evening, I looked up at the vast sky filled with countless stars. The night air carried the familiar scent of diesel and freedom. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt completely at peace. The storm had passed. I had navigated through it with patience and precision. And on the other side, I found something more valuable than $200 million. I found myself. If this story meant something to you, you're going to love what's coming next. Click that video right there for another story about someone who chose consequences over silence. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. I post new stories every week. Hit that bell so you never miss one. I'll see you in the next one.